Is this thing on?
All right, guys, welcome to the first official episode of the new launch of the Electricians Have Spoken. Now, what this is, if you're new to the channel, is every single day on the community tab, I will drop 2 polls that will show up in your YouTube feed, or you can go to the community tab and you can see all of them. And you guys will get on here. It looks just like this. So, I'll get on and I'll let you know little messages. I'll ask you code questions. I'll ask you what your favorite classic car is. And most of the time, we're asking specific code questions or sample test questions. Right here's a good one. 30 amp 240 volt less required to be TR, and you can comment a code reference on any one of these polls to be entered to win that week's 25 Lowe's or Home Depot card. I give one away every single week. So let's look here. We had 269 votes on this one. The options were true, false, and I'm not sure. That's supposed to say sure. So occasionally you'll find a typo on there. Often I'll put the answer like right here of I'm not sure. And the reason I do that is I want to know how much you guys are understanding about the topic. So let's just answer this one here. All luminaries are required to be listed. Yes or no? Remember, if I comment a code reference, I can be entered to win this week's $25 Lowe's or Home Depot card. Well, I know the answer to this one, and the answer is true. So 93% of electricians said it was true. 5% said it false, and 2% said that I'm not sure. So let's go ahead and look at some of the comments. And it's kind of cool where you guys can comment. And what's awesome about this, if some of you guys are not sure, I know to further expound on it later if we make a video.
Hey guys, I want to take a minute and stop right there and let you know that there are no stupid questions in electrical. You know, the mark of a really good electrician to me when I first hire somebody is the fact that they'll stop and they'll ask questions. And, a lot of times they seem like silly questions, simple questions to people, like, what orientation do you want your faceplate shears and stuff like that. But that just lets me know that they've worked for other electricians and they know that everybody likes it a little bit different. So never be scared to ask questions in this game. That's what it's all about. None of us know it all. And the moment we think they do, they change the code cycle, right? So that's what this game's all about, and let's get to it.
About it. All right, so we've got some comments here. Lots of people want to give a shout out to all of my regulars. Thank you so much. And look, they just put things like this. They put, the page number. They put what code reference it is. And it's a pretty cool thing where we can all get together every single day, twice a day, and then we can go back and make these episodes of The Electricians Have Spoken. We're doing a new platform. I used to do like a live video, but now we're making actual episodes. So hopefully they will serve, and prove to be of a great service to you, add value to you, and help you become everything that you can be in life and in the electrical industry. Let's get to it. All right, so let's jump right into our first poll. What rule do we use when sizing services rated 1 through 400 amps for dwelling units? And remember, this is a pretty complex code, and I've got videos explaining this in great detail, but this is going to be what rule? The 0.85 rule, the 0.86 rule, the 0.83 rule, the 0.95 rule, and the 0.75 rule. So this is when we're going to be dealing with services and feeders that serve all of the circuits for a dwelling unit. Okay, and this applies to services on dwelling units that are in between 1 and 400 amps. But when you're dealing with a multifamily dwelling unit, it cannot apply to the service, but only to the feeder of the individual units. And no matter what way you apply this, it has to supply the entire load. So you cannot use this rule for feeders that service garages. You cannot use this rule for feeders that service a subpanel in part of the house. That has to be sizing the feeder service for the entire dwelling unit, all of the loads associated with that dwelling unit. So let's go ahead and look at what some of the comments are before we get into the answer. So I want to give a shout out to Jay. He gave a comment with a code reference and a page number. Kerman, Junkster Sai, Philip B, Moses, appreciate you, Moses, Corey Salo, Ramiro, and Phil. Want to give a shout out and thank you to all you guys. Thank you for your detailed comments on this. Remember, if you guys comment on any post, you can be entered to win that $25 gift card. And I just want to give a shout out to some of my some of my guys who are in here all the time, guys and gals that are in here all the time answering the code questions. It keeps you guys sharp in the game. It also helps when we go to research these things. The men and women have page numbers to go by and even what copy of the of the code book that they're in. I want to give a shout out to Kerman. He gave the page number of 149. And want to give a shout out to others who gave the page number. So it's page 149 in the 2017, and I've got the page number right here of page 157 in the 2020. Now going back to the poll, let's see what the electricians had to say about it. So the answer was the 0.83 rule. Let's look at what the electricians had to say. 12% said 0.85, 1% said 0.86, 72% said the 0.83 rule, 3% said 0.95, and 11% said the 0.75 rule. So really proud of you guys on this one. 72% of the electricians got it right, and the electricians have spoken.
You know that the first National Electrical Code Book was printed way back in 1897? Pretty cool, huh?
All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into some more polls. So let's look at what is the voltage across an open switch when the voltage supplying the switch is 120 volts. So I love this question, right? You've really got to stop and think about what's going on here. So the options were 12 volts, 120 volts, 0 volts, 1.2 volts, and 240 volts. So when you're dealing with an open switch, what does that mean? We learned that this week. An open switch means that it's off. So anything that's open is off. Open neutral, open ground, whatever. So when it's open, it's disconnected and it's off. So let's take a single pole switch, for example. Let's say we have 120 volts coming into the top terminal. So let's say that's the line side. Okay? So, and let's say that switch is off. So it's open. That means I have 120 volts standing on the top terminal, and I have 0 volts on the bottom terminal. So I have a difference in potential of what? I have a difference in potential of 120 volts. Let's say I were to close that switch, turn it on. Would there be any difference in potential between the top or the bottom, or would they both have 120 volts on it? So let's go ahead and look at the answer here. The answer to this question is 120 volts. Let's see what the electricians had to say. 2% said 12 volts. 33% said 120 volts. 62% said 0 volts. 1% said 1.2 volts. And 1% said 240 volts. This is a very tricky question. I want to give a shout out to all the people who commented: Kerman, Christopher Thomas, Philip B, Donald B, Dalton B, excuse me. If I ever mispronounce your names or totally botch it, guys, please forgive me. We got I Don't Know July. We got Christopher, appreciate you. IMT Reese, thank you. Told Truth Be Bold, and Louis M. So thank you guys so much for all of your comments. And this one here can be tricky, guys. So I just want you to think about it like this. Anytime we have an open switch, there's a difference in potential on that switch. There's 120 volts standing on the top or whatever the line screw is, and there's 0 volts on the other side. So if one were to measure in between the two, you would have 120 volts in a difference of potential. Okay? That doesn't mean current would flow. That doesn't mean there's, as far as, if there's no neutral path or whatever. We're talking about just the difference in potential of voltage. If we were to close that switch, meaning turn that switch on, there would be no difference in potential. You'd have 120 volts on the top screw and 120 volts on the bottom screw, so your reading would be 0. The electricians have spoken. Let's get to it. All right, guys, let's take a look at a little bit easier one. So what part of the code book would you use to look at sample calculations? Now, this one's actually really important. I don't know if you guys know it, but there's actually a bunch of sample load calculations and different calculations in the back of the code book. The options were Annex A, Annex B, Annex C, Annex D, and Annex E. Now, if we're looking at this from a testing standpoint, we know that it's not Annex C because that's going to be due to, we use that table all the time. We don't know if it's any of the other annexes because we don't really use them very often. But let's go ahead and see what the electricians down here in the comments had to say. Thank you, Louis M. He said informative Annex D examples. Great job. Hizoka, appreciate you. Philip B. Kerman, Andrew H. And Aftab, appreciate you, brother. Annex B. He gave a good shout out there, and it may have been a typo. But let's go ahead and look at the answer here. The answer is Annex D. So 73% of the electricians got it correct. Annex D is one of your greatest resources. If you just want a little tip or a little visual, I'm a real visual learner, right? If you just want a little visual learn, on a calculation or one part of a calculation or one piece, they have a lot of great examples in Annex D. So you have to go check it out. And this is in all of the code books. I don't think it's changed in the 08, 11, 14, 17, or 20. And I don't look for it to change in the 23. Annex D is going to be example calculations. Let's get to it. Let's go ahead and look at another simple one here really quickly. And, this is something that you may not think about. But when we're dealing with load calculations, when we come to an answer that is 0.5 or greater, we're actually going to round up. Okay, so the options were here, true or false. Do we round up if it's 0.5 or greater, or do we round down? I'll give you a little heads up. It's never going to make the difference between you getting the right answer or a wrong answer as far as the final round up or round down. I've never seen on a PSI exam or any practice exam ever where one answer was 26 and one answer was 25, and it depended on whether or not you rounded up or down. Now, in other exams, for other trades and different type of licenses, they may do that. But for electrical, I've personally never seen it. You guys will have to let me know in the comments below. So let's go ahead. Thank you, Ren. Appreciate you for your comment. Kerman, Brandon, and Philip B. Thank you guys so much. Let's see. The answer was true. 96% of you guys got it right, and the electricians have spoken. All right, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at another one here. How many watts is equal to 1 horsepower? And the options were 746, 718, 468, 789, or 712. Now, if you take and bear this math out, each horsepower is going to be equal to approximately 746 watts. Okay, I think it's like 745.7 or something like that. So we just round up to 746. So anytime you're dealing with 1 horsepower, it's equal to 746 watts. Let's go ahead and look at the comments here. Philip B, appreciate you. And Chad Smith, thank you so much. I think there might have been a typo there. So yes, it's a little bit less than 746. You're absolutely right. So I love this one here. Let's see what the electricians had to say about it. Let's click the correct answer. So 90% of you guys got it right. Wow, I'm blown away by that. You guys did awesome on that one. So 90% got it right. 3% said 718, and going down respectively, we had about 3 and 2% in between. So we had 382 votes on this one, and the correct answer was 746. The electricians have spoken. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and jump into this. How many 120 volt, 20 amp general lighting and receptacle circuits would you have with a total calculated VA of 13,400? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this here. I'm asking general lighting and receptacle circuits. We're not talking about, and you don't have to do 20 amp, you can do 15 amp, right? You can do either one, but we're not talking about the required 20 amp circuits. We're talking about if you decide to use 20 amp breakers and you have this many VAs of general lighting, how many of those are you going to need? And it's a very simple math calculation, and we're going to talk about it now. So let's go ahead and look at it. So let's see what some of the guys said here. We got 4 divided by 120 divided by 20 amps. Very good. Romano nailed it. That's good. Great job. I'm going to teach you guys how to do this now. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So go ahead and get your calculator out. And what you're going to do is you're going to type in the total VAs that you have to deal with. All right, so you type in the total VA. So you type in 13,400. Then what you're going to do is you're going to divide it by the voltage of whatever those circuits are. So in this case, they're 120 volts in the United States. So we're going to divide that by 120. That's going to give us 111.6 amps. Now we have to divide that by whatever type of circuit that we're using, whether it's a 15 or a 20 amp. I mean, the overcurrent device. So we divide it by 20, and that's going to give us 5.8 circuits. Now, let me ask this question here. Can you have 0.58 of a circuit? No, you can't. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to round up always. So this is always. So if you figure out your VAs and you want to know how many general lighting circuits at a minimum you can have, just take those total VAs, divide it by 120, and then divide it by whatever amp breaker you're using. And that gives us exactly how many. Let's see how many it would be if it was a 15 amp breaker. Let's take a look at this. So we have 13.4. divided by 120, divided by 15. You would have to have 7.4 circuits, which you would round up to 8. So anytime you're doing this, take your total VAs, divide it by the voltage, divide it by the amperage, and that's going to tell you how many general circuits that you have to have. Let's get to it. All right, guys, let's ask the question, when did they stop installing knob and tube? All right, so if you've never seen knob and tube, this is a perfect example of everything that was really in their system. They had single strand wires, so they'd run a hot here, neutral there, hot here, neutral there. And what they would do is they would take these tubes and they would put them in between the joists So they would drill out a hole, stick a tube in between it, and then run the wire in between the tube to protect it as it went through the framing member. Then, when they came to up and down, or anytime they needed to keep it attached, they would literally take like a 16-penny nail, that we would call it. They would take 2 pieces of porcelain and essentially wedge the wire in between them. And you could see it there in the picture if you look closely. So they would take a base, and then they would go ahead and take the top, start driving the nail through, and then they would fish the wire through, and then finish pounding the nail in to pinch it down. And that's literally how they ran it. It's called knob and tube. So when did they stop installing it? Well, first let's look at when they started installing. They started installing it around the 1980s, and then they stopped around the 1940s. I've seen homes wired in the late 40s that still had knob and tube. You say, well, why is that? Because in some areas they stopped doing it in the early 20s. Well, the biggest thing has to do in the same way that it is today, that we can be in one county and then 5 counties over, they have a bunch of different wiring methods, different terminology, different slang terms for things. It was the same back then. And availability to parts was a big one. But really, let's say if someone tried to come up to us and they created a new product and it wasn't Romex, okay, and they came up with a new cable and they wanted us to start installing it, but legally we could still install Romex if we wanted to. Well, most of us, if you've been in the game for 15 years, most of us are probably gonna fight tooth and nail and try to finish our career another 15 years or so installing Romex, aren't we? Well, the same thing happened with knob and tube. What happened is that these newer wiring methods were coming out, but these guys cut their teeth on, were born and bred in, maybe even their daddy installed knob and tube wiring, and they didn't want to stop installing it. Same thing happened with the cloth wire. You can see it all the way into the 50s and 60s when they had plastic Romex available in the 60s and maybe even before. And the reason is because the old school electricians, hey, I came up this way, I'm going to keep installing it this way. The same thing happened with knob and tube. I've seen homes in the late 40s with knob and tube in it, and it will have a mix. It'll have knob and tube for the lighting and then cloth Romex, and you can tell it was all installed at the same time. But the die-hard electricians who cut their teeth on knob and tube didn't want to stop installing it, and they had their reason why, right? They soldered their joints, they like to run knob and tube, it's worked this long. And the same thing would happen to us if they came out with a new cable from Romex. We'd be like, why would you change from Romex? It's worked for this many years, and we would fight tooth and nail, and eventually we would become old school and obsolete. So they started installing it around 1980s, and they stopped installing it around the 1940s. You guys can let me know if you've seen a house older than 1948 with knob and tube that was new when it was installed. Let's get to it. All right, guys, let's take a look at this. What size copper GEC would you select for a service with 200 amp overcurrent protection and 3/0 copper service conductors? Now, I do want to point out that on all of these type questions, it doesn't matter if you're in the 87 code book or the 2020 code book. These things have not changed fundamentally at all. So if you're in the 08, 11, 14, 17, 20, all these questions, and about 97% of the questions that I ask on here, are going to all be pretty much exactly the same through at least the last 5 code cycles. Now, there are some specific AFCI and GFCI ones that have changed, but I want to keep you guys up to date as well. But let's go ahead and take a look at this. So when we're dealing with this, we have to make sure that we distinguish between what type of conductor they're looking for. What is a GEC? It's a grounding electrode conductor, isn't it? So we're dealing with grounding electrode conductors. What table are we going to head to when we're dealing with grounding electrode conductors? Let's see what the electricians had to say. Stephen Hall, appreciate you. He said, good morning, coach. Morning, brother. Kerman said number 4, 250.66, and that's where we're going to be heading. Thank you, Kerman. We got Patrick H., Philip B., appreciate you guys, Corey Salo, and Moses. Thank you guys so much. So here's the score, guys. When we're dealing with these questions here, we're going to be heading to our grounding electrode conductor table. I've got videos teaching you all about these tables, and you head to table 250.66. We're going to be on page 116 of the 2017, and let's see if a 2020 guy dropped it in here. Nope, didn't drop the 2020. If you guys want to drop it down in the comments below, that is always a great help. All right, so here's the deal, guys. When we're looking at this table, we always read the black bolt heading at our table when we first get there. All right, so we realize we're in the right table, grounding electrode conductor, and this one is going to be sized off the largest ungrounded service conductor. So this one doesn't have anything to do with the overcurrent device, but the test makers will put the overcurrent device in there just to throw you off. So let's look at this table here. So we're going to size it based off of our ungrounded service conductors, which in this case are 3/0. So we have to make sure that we're in the right columns as far as what type of metal. So we're dealing with copper service conductors and a copper GEC. So we're going to select from both of the copper columns. On the left-hand side, we come down until we find 3/0, and then we're going to cross over and tee off with the copper GEC side. So grounding electrode conductor. And we find out that it is a number 4. Great job. Guys, let's take a look at this one here. Electrical panels cannot be installed in which of the following areas? So anytime you're dealing with a question like this, always first look at the places where it can be installed. So can it be installed in a bedroom? Can it be installed in a hallway? Can it be installed in a bathroom, a kitchen, or a front porch? Well, we know it can be installed in a bedroom, just not in a closet, right? We know it can be installed in a hallway, although that's usually not practical. Can it be installed in a bathroom? Can it be installed in a kitchen? And from, if you've been watching my videos to any extent, you know that it can be installed inside of a front porch. All right, so now we've got it pinned down to kitchen and bathroom. Let's see what the electricians had to say down below. Let's see. Brian Poisey said in Hawaii, they put them in closets, kitchens, bathrooms, pantries, and pretty much anywhere. Appreciate that, brother. Ren says, yes. Always install service panels in the safest, most convenient location, the shower stall. All right. The Doc 77, appreciate that, Ren. Doc 77, let us know the code reference. Appreciate that. We are going to be heading over that way. And in 230 or 240. Either one. So, all right. So here's the deal, guys. Here's the deal. There's one place of these 5, I think it's 5 places that you cannot install it. And that is inside of the bathroom. Under no circumstances can you install an electrical panel inside a bathroom. Can you install it inside of a kitchen? Most people would say no right off the jump, but you can. You can install it inside of a kitchen. Now, it's got to be, you got to have your workspace, and it can't be over a countertop because that would infringe on your workspace, but you can install it inside the kitchen if you want to. You really can. The only place that you cannot install it in this list is going to be inside of the bathroom. Great job. THHN number 8 conductor in inches squared. So that's a very specific question there, and it's asking in inches squared. The options were, I'm not going to read all through them because that's a mouthful, but these are your options here, and let's see what the electricians had to say about it. All right, so Junkster Side gave us a code reference in the 11. Appreciate you, brother. Let us know what page it was on, and let us know where to go. Brian G, appreciate you. Corey S, Andrew H, Philip B, Kerman, and Stephen H. Appreciate all you guys. Every one of you got it correct. This is going to be a Chapter 9 Table 5 issue. So if you want to head to Chapter 9 Table 5, I think these guys have broke down what page number is this on. Page 685 of the 2017. And nobody dropped the 2020 on this one. Sorry, guys. But if you want to put it... Oh, yeah, they did. Page 701. Thank you so much, Corey. So we're on page 701 of the 2020. We're on page 685 of the 2017. And what we're dealing with is we're dealing with the approximate area of the conductor. Now remember, this all has to do with pipe fill. Normally this has to do with pipe fill, and we're trying to find the inches squared. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to come to page 685 in the 2017 or 701 in the 2020. Then you're going to go down until you find a column that has THHN in it. So when we're inside that column, then we're going to go over and find our respective conductor. And I have videos teaching you all about how to use this table, okay? And you can learn all about that on the Code Coach channel. Then we're going to go over and we are going to make sure that we're teed off with the approximate area in inches squared. We don't want the approximate diameter. You know, if you look across the top, it'll tell you the different columns. And I've got tons of videos teaching you all about this table. But we go down, we tee off, we use a piece of paper to make sure that we've lined up, and we find out that our correct answer is 0.0366. So let's see what the electricians had to say. 10% said the first answer, and then 15, and then 56% of the electricians got it correct. Whew, way to go, guys. The electricians have spoken. Hey guys, thank you for joining us for the pilot episode of The Electricians Have Spoken. These episodes are going to grow and become longer, more involved, with more shots of us out in the field. I really want this to turn into a series that adds value to you and also is entertaining. So as it grows, each month we're going to drop it on the first Saturday of the month, and we're going to, hopefully this will add value to you and help us become a stronger community. One thing I really encourage you to do is get involved with the polls. I love going to code conferences, and one of the reasons I love doing it is because you get to be immersed in in the code around other people who want to be in it. And it's just, something fulfilling about that. And hopefully we're kind of creating that atmosphere every single day on the Electrical Code Coach YouTube channel, where you can watch videos every day and also get involved in these polls and then come back and check out the answers on these episodes of The Electrician Have Spoken. I just want to be a part of your journey and help you become everything that you can be in life and in the electrical industry. You can email me anytime for help, advice, or anything. If you just need to talk, whatever it is, at electricalcodecoach@gmail.com. I just want to see you win. Let's get to it.